Hey everybody, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. It is EnGenius time. I should say it's EnGenius time again. So fresh off the heels of the review here for the ECW336, we've got the ECW336. And this is not just another access point. This one here is the tri-band Wi-Fi 6E 4x4 indoor access point. And as with the other EnGenius components I've been checking out, this is part of their business solutions. And EnGenius has a line of components that are geared towards the consumer, but this is the business solution part, and these components here are really meant for businesses, small businesses, medium businesses. This will work just fine. In fact, all of their hardware will work just fine in the home, but it's massive overkill, very expensive for home use. So you wouldn't be buying one of these unless you really had a need for a business type application. And actually, as I'm talking, as I unbox it, this is a little different here. I hadn't seen a top cover like this, so let's see. Okay, 6 gigahertz tri-band access point, plug and play with 0 configuration. So really, it's set up your cloud account if you don't already have one. Scan the little QR code, connect it to the internet, assign the device, and you're up and running. So it really just takes a couple of minutes. And I'll continue with the setup here in just a moment, but I want to go over the feature set real quick here. And these are all slides that I picked up from the website, so you can go and review these in more detail if you like. But the big thing for me is the Wi-Fi 6E connectivity. And we don't have a whole lot of devices that are Wi-Fi 6E capable at the moment, but that is slowly changing as more devices become Wi-Fi 6E compliant. Moving to the next slide here, this one sort of talks about your speeds. If you look in the center or the middle there, it talks about 1200 megabits a second on your 2.4 gigahertz. That's the maximum data rate. 2400 on the 5, so it doubles it. And then we go to doubling that in the 6 gigahertz band. So we've got some impressive speeds there. It does have a single 5 gigabit Ethernet port, which is what you'll connect to. So you should be able to move tons of data through there with a 5 gig connection, 5 gigabit per second. It is a PoE 802.3 AT compliant access point. So you don't need to use an adapter. You can just plug it into a PoE port on your switch. And the next slide goes into a little more detail here on your Wi-Fi 6E capabilities. If you look at it, you can see the graphics there on the right show the blue 2.4 gigahertz, and you can see the jump you get from going to 5 gigahertz and then going from 5 to 6. You can see how much more, or how much bigger of a jump that is, and it is significant. And the next slide here gives you a little better representation for how the additional speed and bandwidth capabilities are achieved. You can see the channels there. We've got more channels, and we've got a greater range on your frequency. So you can see on the 6 gigahertz we go from 5925 megahertz up to 7125 megahertz. So this really opens a whole new spectrum of connectivity. And the next couple of slides here are the specifications, and you can sort of pause these slides and take a look in a little more detail if you want. And like I said, all of this information is on the EnGenius website. And then this final slide here talks about the product highlights, and it sort of goes over the probably the most important aspects or functions of this particular access point. And another thing to mention, the ECW336 is mesh capable, which means it will become part of a Wi-Fi mesh network with other ECW access points, not switches, but access points from EnGenius. There are limitations such as the distance between the units for it to function effectively, but this is compatible with being part of a Wi-Fi mesh network. And if you're not familiar with a mesh network, it basically allows you to use multiple access points throughout a building And as you walk from one zone that an access point is covering to the next, there's a seamless transition for your cell phone, for example. As you walk from one area to the next, it switches over automatically and you don't lose a connection. There's no lag, there's no momentary loss of anything. It's just a seamless transition as you walk within the range of that entire Wi-Fi mesh network. All right, so now I will continue with the setup. Okay, so the next part here, you get into the app, and if you look there at the bottom right, you'll see the little orange plus. That's what you want to click on. Or if you look at the top, you can see my inventory. I've got 7 items, 7 are managed, 1 network. So I've got 3 access points. Since we're adding an access point, you'll see that change to 4 here a little later. And then you see this screen after you hit the little orange plus, and register device is what you want to click on next. Then it gives you a screen where you can scan the back of the unit, find the QR code. As soon as it picks up on it, it will add it to your system. And then it gives you the option here to connect your device to the internet. And then you click the finish setup, and then you're done. It's that simple. And then when you go back to your main screen on the app, you can see now I have 8 items in inventory, 8 managed, again 1 network, 3 switches, 4 access points now. If you remember, it was 3 earlier. There's a gateway that's now available. They've made that available since I started this review. I don't have one of those at this point, but that's where it would show up. All right, so I hit the little orange plus to add a new device, scanned in the little QR code there, and we are ready to power it up. Now, the other end of this Ethernet cable here goes over to an EnGenius switch that is power over Ethernet capable. The device here is power over Ethernet. It does have a port here for a 12 volt DC adapter. It is not included, so you would have to supply your own. But really, you want to use your Ethernet cable that is PoE powered to supply power to the device. And if you're not familiar with what PoE or power over Ethernet is, you've got 4 pair of wires here in your Ethernet cable. Not all of them are being used. Some of them are just going along for the ride. So on a PoE system, you're just using your regular data cable to supply power. So it's power and data in a PoE system. Now, if you don't have a PoE switch readily available, EnGenius does make a PoE adapter. These are also called injectors. This is the EPA 5006 HAT. And these are really simple to use. So really, there's a power cord, so you plug that into your 120 volts AC, and if you look here, there's a power light. A little hard to see. There we go. There's a PoE and a LAN. So this is basically the data cable coming in just from your regular network. There's no power to it. So it comes into this device, and when it leaves, this adds power to the cable that's coming out. So anything that's connected to this port can be powered over Ethernet. So since we have a PoE switch, I don't need to use this, but it is handy to have in case you need it. Okay, so now that I've got the power to it through the PoE cable, let's see what's going on this side. So we've got the usual orange power light that is flashing. Eventually it'll come on solid, and we'll see all these other lights here start to flash. So we've got a network activity or network connected light that will flash, 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, and we have the additional 6 gigahertz LED indicator. So this usually takes a couple of minutes to fire up. So comparing these two, if we look at the power requirement, if you do use an adapter, you need to get one that has the right rating. So this is 12 volt 1.5 amp on the 220S, and the 336 here, this is a 12 volt 2.5 amps. So this uses an additional amp. So again, if you do need to use a power adapter, you need to make sure you get one that can supply the proper amount of power. Now you can see the bottoms here are similar in shape. That means that the hardware kit here comes with it, and this is to mount it basically to the ceiling. So the same hardware kit would work for either one. So you get some screws with some anchors, And then these brackets that are made, usually these are made to attach to your ceiling tiles in an office type setting. And we do have key slots here, so you can use screws if you if you need to. So the way these little clips attach, again, this would attach to one of your the metal dividers on your ceiling tiles, and then this slides into here and it clips in, kind of snaps in like that, and then if you need to remove it, you just pull this little tab up and it slides right out. And it's the same on the 220S here also. And like I said, you got these key slots, so you can use the screw heads to mount it directly to a ceiling or a wall, or however you need to mount it. Now I went ahead and took the cover off just so you could see what was going on. This is something you should never ever need to do yourself, so I'm doing it for you. So there's what the circuit board looks like. You can see the antennas here along the outside of the frame. But what's interesting is the frame here. It looks like it's plastic, but it's actually an aluminum casting, which is kind of nice because if you look, it's kind of hard to see, but what they've done is they've used this frame as a heat sink. So your components on the other side of this board, again, you can't really see it, but they touch this chassis here, this aluminum chassis, so it's used as a heat sink to help keep the unit cool. And this is the 336. The 220S, of course, is a different unit altogether. Now the antennas are actually attached, so I'm not going to open this up too far, but you can kind of see in there, there's a big aluminum heat sink, and it's in contact here with the aluminum frame, and again it acts as a very large heat sink. So that's how they go about keeping the unit cool. So Wi-Fi 6E is not real common yet, so finding clients that are Wi-Fi 6E capable is a little bit difficult. But I do have two clients. One is this motherboard that is Wi-Fi 6E capable, and the other one is the motherboard in this desktop right here that is also Wi-Fi 6E capable. So they are both connected, and what I'll do is I'll do some speed testing with the access point here in the same room. And the easiest thing to do to get some distance is to actually move the access point as far as I can, given Ethernet cable limitations, and see what that does to the Wi-Fi 6E connection. I know, the difference between going from 2.4 to 5, of course, 5, your bandwidth goes way up, but your sensitivity to walls and objects, things like that, goes up. And my guess is that 6E will be even more so, even more sensitive to the room and the surroundings. Like I said earlier, what I was particularly interested in is the Wi-Fi 6E performance. So with the access point on my bench top, maybe 3 feet away, and normally you're not going to be that close to your access point, but that's where I started, and then I moved it 10 feet away, and then another 10 feet. So I used increments of 10 feet all the way up to 80 feet. And I would run the speed test 3 or 4 times, sort of take an average there to see, because sometimes the numbers were all over the map, and you would have to run the test a couple more times to sort of get some stable numbers. That's normal, you see that from time to time. But where I was impressed was, I guess I should say, I was expecting the Wi-Fi 6E to not go as far as it did. I was expecting the signal to drop off sooner, and I was all the way out to 80 feet, and I still had not the greatest signal, but you can see on the chart here, 103 down and 93 up. Again, that's nothing to be really excited about, but that far away, 80 feet away. And the other thing that comes into play is the layout of your office or your home, as far as the location of the access point, with regard to where your clients are, like if you're using a cell phone that's capable of Wi-Fi 6E. As you move around, there will be walls and furniture, things like that, that will affect the performance. And I would expect Wi-Fi 6E to not fare as well as 2.4 and 5. So like I said, while the numbers aren't terribly exciting, they're not horrible, and they are better than what I was expecting. And this unit, the ECW336, does support DFS, which is dynamic frequency selection on the 5 gigahertz band. And what that is, before Wi-Fi was a thing, the frequencies that were used were often used by military and weather radar, military radar, things like that. And now that we have Wi-Fi as a common thing, those frequencies can interfere. So what this does, this detects if there is like a radar in use, and it will direct you to a frequency that is not being used by military or weather radar, and it does that all automatically in the background. So this particular model here, the feature set that it has is, again, business oriented. This is not something that you would use around the house. You can, but it would be massive overkill, because this lists for anywhere from $600 to $699. So for a consumer grade unit, that's a lot of money for features that you would never really use. Now this unit here, this is a Netgear WAX 615. It's around $139, $129, somewhere in that range. Now it does not have the feature set that this unit from EnGenius does. But this would be something more in line with what you could use around the house, and you wouldn't care that it's missing the feature set that this one has. But it's a fraction of the cost. But if you need something that is robust and is going to just pretty much work all the time, although I can say with all the consumer grade and the other access points that I've looked at, they've never really given me any problems, but these units here that are business grade are really going to give you the performance and the, I guess, the warm fuzzy feeling that your system is always going to be up and running. The only time that can be a problem is if you lose your internet connection. And these units here, since they're cloud managed, you can't really log into it. You can't punch in the IP address, get in there and configure this or make any changes. Whereas this unit, it is also cloud managed, but there's a mode I can put it in, and I can log right into it with the IP address, and I can get in and make configurations and changes, and it's kind of a standalone unit. I've had between 20 and 30 clients attached to it. I've had no problems with anything connecting. Nothing's been dropped. Wi-Fi 6E, I only have 2 clients that I can connect to it, so I can't do a whole lot of data moving with just those 2 devices, but everything that I've had has connected, and again, no issues, no problems. And the Wi-Fi mesh here is nice because it just enables and becomes part of your EnGenius network. Again, you have to have other mesh capable access points, but if you do, it's nice. You can walk around and you're always connected. So despite the price being a little salty, $699 to join the club here, I still like the unit, and performance was decent. I didn't have any real issues. So I would still give this the Overclockers Club Gold Award. This is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.